Because what you wish to say cannot be said, it can only be lived. And so you choose silence. Not the silence of distance, but the silence that knows every sound is already perfect. Everything around you keeps moving. Rain still falls. People still laugh. Time still flows. But you know, nothing more needs to be added, because everything is already complete. One last breath of night. Moonlight lays upon the ground like a mirror. You sit there, not waiting for anything, not wishing for anything. All philosophies, all stories, all memories have dissolved. Only one thing remains vast, gentle, and nameless. And you hear within yourself a very soft voice, like wind passing through the forest. Be still, for life itself is breathing through you. You do not need to find me, because you are me. You close your eyes, and in that moment, you disappear, not into nothingness, but into everything. There is no one left to listen, and yet the silence continues to sing. If there were a final sound at the end of life, perhaps it would be a very quiet sigh, part regret, part gratitude. One breath dissolving into open air, with no separation between the one who breathes and the air being drawn in. This is the moment when you are no longer someone, only knowing simple, complete, and nameless. There is no blinding light, no bell of enlightenment. There is only stillness, like a morning lake before the wind arrives, and in that water the images of the world appear so clearly that you can no longer tell what is reflection and what is real. You suddenly realize everything you once studied, suffered for, and tried to explain, all of it was only leading you here, to the place where there are no answers, where every question dissolves like salt in the sea. And you see this plainly. Truth has never needed to be understood. It only needs to be seen. Like light needing no praise to shine, it simply shines. And darkness, never the enemy, is only the place where light has not yet been recognized. A breeze passes. You hear the leaves touch. Each leaf trembles as if speaking a wordless language. All is well. And strangely, your heart understands. No translation, no reasoning, only a feeling deep as a spring running within. Everything has always been well. It is only human beings who forget. We run in search of happiness, forgetting that happiness has never left us. We fear loss, forgetting that impermanence is the only miracle that allows everything to keep living. Now you can see your whole journey, from the frightened child to the seeker of meaning, to the one who lets all meanings fall away, and finally only a person listening. Listening to birds at dawn, listening to rain, listening to the heartbeat, and listening to the silence after every sound has passed. In that listening you understand, no sound is small, because everything is a rhythm of the same essence. The world has not changed. It is only that you now see it from within, as if you no longer stand outside to observe, but the very scene has opened its eyes to look back at you. Every leaf, every drop of water, every breath seems to say, I am you, not with language, but with felt reality. So true and so deep that every distance between self and all things dissolves completely. Now you understand why the sages of old left few elaborate teachings. They only smiled, knowing that every word is but a finger pointing at the moon, and once you see the moonlight, the finger is no longer needed. You smile in the same way, lightly, peacefully, leaving no trace, not because you have achieved anything, but because you no longer need to achieve. You do not wish to become a good person, a bad person, a right person, or a wrong person. You only wish to be, and within that being, every definition melts away. One morning you step outside. The sun rises, spreading across blades of grass still jeweled with dew. You stand there, not thinking, not remembering, not hoping. You simply breathe, and know that this is life breathing itself. Everything is so simple it cannot be written in words. Only be present, only be grateful, only breathe. There is no longer any need for a story, because you realize Every story is only a wave upon the surface of the sea, and you have returned to being the sea. When the sun sets, darkness settles softly like a blanket. You sit down and feel a warm peace open in your chest. There is nothing to worry about, nothing to hold. There is only life still singing the same old song, but this time, you hear it completely. A drop of water falls. A bird lifts its wings. A breath passes through your chest. All of it is simply life in the shape of a moment. And when night comes, you close your eyes. There is nothing more to ask for, because everything has already arrived. There is nothing left to fear losing, because nothing can leave you now. You only smile in the darkness, gentle as a mother's touch, and speak very softly, not to anyone, but to life itself as it listens. Thank you for allowing me to be a small part of this music. Even if only a single note I have been allowed to sing. The universe is silent. Then it hums a long, quiet tone. Not a finale, only another breath beginning. No one knows where you go. But perhaps you simply dissolve back into the very place you first appeared, into light, into wind, into everything that has never left you for even a second. And in that final hush, if someone listens closely, they will hear your lingering whisper, I have never left this place. I am still living, only in another shape of peace. In the end, perhaps every awakening travels back to the same place, the place where you began. But this time, you are no longer a seeker. You are one who sees. You realize there is no cosmic secret far away, no hidden truth behind formulas. It is all here in this breath, in the moment you sit quietly and allow life to be simply life. What we called the gambler's illusion, the belief that the universe must be fair, that luck must return, that suffering must receive an answer, turns out to be the mind's way of comforting itself so it can continue on. But when we stop, when we become still enough to look deeper, we see the universe has never owed anyone anything. It has never taken anything away. Everything is transforming, like rain becoming a river, like darkness giving birth to light. And within that transformation, you begin to understand a wonder. Everything is temporary, yet nothing is lost. People come and go, and love remains. Dreams break, and meaning quietly blooms elsewhere. This is not the fairness we once sought. It is wholeness whole, because nothing more is needed. If you are hearing these words, know that you have taken a very long circle to return to yourself, and now you do not need to understand. You only need to feel the breath moving through you, the heart beating, and life still whispering your name, as it has from the very beginning. Stay, only be present, because right now you are already the whole. No longer heavy, no longer painful, only the soft light of understanding remains. You smile when you remember the gambler from the beginning of the tale, the one who believed that luck would turn, that some law of fairness waited ahead. Now you know, the universe has never owed anyone anything, and has never taken anything away. Only human beings, afraid of randomness, draw fairness on the sky, so they can sleep at night. But within that fear, you recognize a deeply human beauty, the beauty of hope, the hope that after a long night, dawn will come, that after many losses, there will be a single win, that behind all the breaking, something remains whole. And in truth, that hope was never wrong. It only needed to be widened from faith in an outcome to faith in life itself. It no longer matters whether tomorrow changes or not, because the very fact that you can still love, still trust, still wait, is already a miracle. At that point, you no longer wish to awaken, because waking and dreaming are now just two sides of the same reality. You can be walking, speaking, working, and still feel the deepest silence moving within it. You eat and recognize the taste of life. You listen and hear the sound of infinity. You breathe and know this breath is not yours alone, it is the breath of the entire universe passing through. There is no need to choose between meditation and life, for you now see, meditation is simply life. when you are fully present in it. Sometimes someone asks you, "What have you gained from this journey?" And you simply smile. Nothing and everything. Because there is nothing to gain, only layers of mist dissolving so that the light of existence can appear. There is no mountaintop to stand on, only a vast sky to breathe beneath. And in that breath, everything is forgiven, not because you try to forgive, but because you see there is nothing to blame, no one to resent, nothing that needs to be made fair. Everything is doing the only thing it can, in the only moment it can exist. The world, from here, is no longer a place to avoid suffering in order to find joy, but a piece of music made of both low and high notes. If you hold on only to joy, you will never hear the whole melody. You begin to love even the rough edges of life, the longing, the loss, the fragility, because you understand that they are what deepen the human heart and make every breath precious. One evening, you stand watching the sun set. Light fades slowly across the water. Everything seems to pause in that moment. There is no longer day or night, only a gentle glow between the two shores of existence. And you understand, life in the end is like the sun itself. It never disappears. It only changes the direction of its light. You turn and look at yourself, and see a person who once searched, who once feared, who once lost their way, but who also once loved, believed, suffered, and awakened. All of those faces are you, and you no longer wish to leave any of them behind. You open your arms, embracing every version of yourself, as though embracing all of humanity. And in that embrace, all the questions of life dissolve like smoke, leaving only a faint smile, as if you just heard life whisper its final words into your ear. I have never left you, and you have never been apart from me. In the end, all that remains is silence. Not the silence of avoidance or ending, but a vast silence where every sound, every meaning, every question merges into one another. A silence not empty, but so full that you can almost hear it breathing. There is no longer a journey, no longer a traveler, no longer a destination, only presence like still water, reflecting the sky without holding on to a single cloud. If someone were to ask you now, "What are you thinking?" perhaps you would only smile, because there is nothing left to think. Thought was once a ladder that helped you climb out of the maze of ignorance, but now that you stand on the open ground of awareness, the ladder is no longer needed. It is not that you reject intelligence, it is simply that intelligence has returned to its natural place, to serve life, not to replace it. Everything suddenly becomes pristine again, not because it has changed, but because you are seeing it for the first time without naming it. A speck of dust floating in sunlight, a child laughing, a dog sleeping on the porch, an old man walking slowly through a narrow lane. Everything, no matter how small, carries a perfect beauty, as if the universe has placed each thing exactly where it belongs. You no longer wish to fix the world, you only wish to see it, and let it be what it is, innocent, imperfect, yet complete. You begin to feel time differently. There is no longer past or future, only an endless flow of the present, constantly arising and dissolving. All memories are no longer a burden, but dried petals, light as breath. All dreams are no longer something to chase, but stars in the night, shimmering without asking to be held. You begin to live like a dreamer, who knows they are dreaming, still participating, still laughing, still hurting, but no longer swept away. Every tear, every smile, becomes a pearl reflecting the light of awareness, seeing itself. Sometimes the old self returns and softly asks, "Are we sure we are truly awake?" But instead of arguing, you simply smile, because you know that even that question is part of the dream. And the dream belongs to life as well, so there is nothing that needs to be pushed away. Awakening is not the erasing of illusion, it is seeing it, and still smiling. Like a person watching a film who knows they are watching, yet still cries at the sad scene, still laughs at the beautiful one, because they understand that within those feelings life is experienced most completely. One day you stand in nature among trees, among wind, among clouds, and you realize, nothing is happening to me. Everything is simply happening. You are no longer the witness, you are witnessing itself. You are no longer the listener, you are the invisible listening that holds all sound. In that moment, you understand. Awareness does not need objects in order to exist. It is the foundation from which all objects arise. And you, in that moment, are no different from the universe. Only the universe temporarily taking human form to know that it is alive. From then on, you live like someone who has come home. No need to prove, no need to argue, no need to search. Each day, each moment, is a gentle greeting between you and life. When someone arrives, you greet them with a smile. When someone leaves, you greet them with silence. Not because you are indifferent, but because you know that every meeting is a temporary reunion between different parts of the same essence. No one truly arrives, and no one truly departs. The world continues to turn. People still love, still rage, still hope, still lose their way. But now you see something profound. All of those movements are the ways the universe learns to love. Every mistake is a lesson. Every breaking is a form of rebirth. Every parting is a way for love to find itself again in a different form. You no longer wish to save anyone because you understand that no one needs saving. Each soul is learning exactly the lesson it needs. Instead of intervening, you are simply there like a small lamp, shining quietly for no reason at all. At this point, words begin to feel insufficient. Every description feels excessive, its drop of dew within its boundless expanse. No more seeking, no more hoping, no more destination. Only life looking at itself through your eyes. When you remain in emptiness long enough, you realize it is not empty. It is full. Not full of matter or emotion, but full of something that cannot be named. Pure life. Without purpose, without owner, pulsing in every grain of dust, in every ray of light, in every breath you take. This life does not need you to understand it. It only asks you to be grateful that you can feel it. Just as the ocean does not need the fish to know how vast it is, it only needs them to swim. And in that simple act, life has already fulfilled itself. In this emptiness, all the boundaries of perception begin to blur. There is no here or there, no before or after, only a transparent mirror, reflecting itself through countless forms. You see a child laughing, and you feel that laughter within yourself. You see someone crying, and you recognize that you have cried through them as well. No one is outside, nothing is inside. There is only one life, playing at division. Suddenly you understand something. All along, the universe has never been silent. It has simply been whispering in a language too subtle for human ears. The sound of rain, the wind, your own breathing, are all different notes in that endless symphony. Even the silence you are sitting in now is a note, the sound of nothing more being needed. And this is the rare moment when you do not want to understand, you do not want to name, because you know that any word would shatter what is present. Perhaps this is the closest a human being can come to enlightenment. Not a blinding light, but a gentle radiance that permeates everything, quiet, yet fathomlessly deep. You no longer feel that you are the one experiencing life. Life is experiencing itself through you. You are not in the universe. You are the universe borrowing a name for a while, living in a body for a while, and one day saying goodbye to become a million other forms. In that moment, every worry, every fear, every question slips from your shoulders like worn-out coats. There is no need to know what will come, because you realize that nothing truly comes. Everything keeps changing shape, and you are the unchanging space that holds all change. You no longer wish to keep the peace. You are peace. You no longer need to find love. You are love. You do not need to move toward the light. You are the light, light that knows it is shining. This is not happiness in the usual sense, because happiness needs the opposite of sorrow. Here, there is no opposite. There is only one seamless stream of feeling. Beyond every concept, you feel sadness the way you feel the wind, passing without leaving a trace. You feel joy like light upon water, reflected and gone. There is nothing to cling to, and yet nothing is lost. Everything is you, and you, strangely, are nothing at all. From here, life becomes a gentle piece of music. You do everything as if dancing with the universe. There are no wrong steps, no correct steps, because every beat is simply another way life expresses itself. You speak without trying to choose your words, because the words arrive on their own. You act without calculation, because action occurs by itself. You love without a reason, because love is no longer a choice, but the instinct of awareness. One night, you look up at the sky. In the quiet black, countless stars shimmer. You no longer see them as distant objects, but as points of light within your own awareness. Because now you understand everything you see outside is the way life holds up a mirror to itself. The light from a distant star has traveled millions of years to reach your eyes. And in that instant, you become the crossing point of time, where past and present meet and breathe together in silence. You realize the universe needs nothing added to be perfect. It is perfect simply because it exists. And within that existence, every mistake, every fracture, every loss is an indispensable stroke in an infinite painting. There is no need to understand, no need to forgive, because when you see the whole, there is nothing left to forgive. There is nothing to fix. There is only a wind-soft acceptance that gathers everything into its gaze. And perhaps this is the moment when all seeking truly ends. Not because you have attained something, but because you realize you have never lacked anything. From beginning to end, you have always been the ocean, only forgetting that you once appeared as a wave. Now the wave returns, needing no name, no longer dividing shore from open sea. Only the movement of water remains soft, luminous, without end. You close your eyes and feel yourself dissolve into everything. There is no you. There is no universe. There is only one breath wide as the sky, deep as silence, and gentle as gratitude. A breath without beginning, without end, still continuing in every living being, every leaf, every star. And within that breath, you whisper as the final words of awakening, everything is breathing with me, and I have never been apart from anything. When the journey reaches its end, you finally understand. No true end exists. There is only a circle where beginning and ending quietly meet, like the two shores of a single breath. Everything you have sought, every question that once burned in you, every pain you carried, now dissolves like mist in the light. Not because you found everything, but because you realize there was never anything to find. From the start, every answer was already present in the silence surrounding you. You simply had not been still enough to hear. When awareness comes home to itself, life suddenly becomes very simple. No high or low, no winning or losing, only small movements, like the heartbeat of the earth, like wind slipping through leaves, like water running in a stream without knowing it is singing. You no longer need to assert anything, nor do you wish to explain anything to anyone, because you see everyone is on a path of their own, and no path is wrong. Each person wakes to a different morning of the soul, and every dawn has its own beauty. You walk through the streets, and every face now glimmers strangely. Not because they have changed, but because your gaze has changed. You see someone worried, and you no longer see a tired person. You see a soul learning the lesson of effort. You see someone angry, and you see a heart still finding its way back to love. You see children running in the sunlight, and you smile because that innocence is also your own true nature. The whole world becomes a mirror, and in the mirror, you see only one life looking at itself. You begin to remember your journey, the vague beginnings, the losses, the questions that never had answers, All of it now feels like an old dream. No one owns anything. There is only life unfolding through countless temporary faces. You sit watching a candle burn. The flame flickers, then goes out. The room grows dark, but within you, the light remains. Not the light of the candle, but the inner light that recognizes it's going out. And you suddenly understand. True light never dies. What goes out is only form, not essence. Just as the sun disappears with every sunset, but you know it has merely gone to shine elsewhere. In the sight of awareness, death too is only a sunset of form and a sunrise of being. Human beings call death an ending because they see with their eyes, but awareness sees with inner silence, and in that silence, nothing truly ends. A loved one passes away. A love fades. A chapter closes. Yet each leaves a subtle vibration within your heart. If you listen deeply enough, you will feel them still living in each breath, in the way you smile, in your voice, in the things you continue to do each day. Life does not live in form. It lives in the endless movement of awareness. When you look out the window and see a cloud drifting by, you know the cloud will vanish. But you also know it will become rain, then water, then river, then vapor rising to form another cloud. Nothing dies in that cycle, only transformation happens. And you are the same, a part of that great circle of renewal, shifting shapes so that life can continue to sing forever. Accepting impermanence does not take away hope. It teaches you how to cherish each moment. Every handshake, every smile, every pale afternoon sunlight, all becomes a miracle. Because you know, nothing guarantees it will ever happen again. And it is that very fragility that makes everything precious. If things were to last forever, you would never learn how to love. It is precisely because they pass away that love becomes meaningful. Awakening does not teach you to avoid loss. It teaches you to embrace it. Like a mother holding her crying child, not to hush it, but simply to keep it close until the crying fades. Impermanence, when embraced, is no longer frightening. It becomes a teacher, a friend, a gentle reminder. Everything comes to teach you to love while it is still here. And when you look back over your life, you realize everything that once brought you pain was what helped you grow. Without loss, you would never have learned to feel. Without loneliness, you would never have found the stillness within. Without illusions collapsing, you would never have seen the truth smiling behind them. Everything, even what you once wished had never happened, turns out to have been necessary. They were all part of the road that led you home. Now, when you see a leaf fall, you no longer feel sadness. You see in it an entire journey, from seed to tree, from tree to leaf, and from leaf back to earth. Nothing ends. The circle simply closes so that another can begin. And within that circle, you smile, knowing that you too are falling not to be lost, but to return. At some point, when you look deeply enough into death, fear fades away. Not because you conquered it, but because you begin to see it never truly existed as something opposite to life. Death does not stand at the end of the road. It is within every step. With every passing second, some small part of you dissolves. A cell dies. An old thought makes room for a new one. An old version of you quietly falls behind. And it is through these countless small deaths that life continues to bloom, moment by moment. When you see this clearly, death is no longer the final day, but only a pause in an endless piece of music. Like when a musician lifts their hands in the middle of a song, that pause does not end the melody. It makes it deeper, more real. Life is the same. Without death, it would grow, weary, for there would be no rest to renew itself. Death is the inhalation of the universe, and birth its exhalation, an eternal rhythm, guided by no one. Yet everything moves perfectly within it. If you sit still, truly still, you can feel it within your body, the constant renewal. Every cell is living, dying, being reborn, even when you do not notice. Life, somehow, keeps itself flowing, a humble yet vast miracle. And you understand. There is no need to fear losing because there is no someone who loses. There is only this movement, without beginning, without end, changing garments through countless forms. People often say, everything will pass. But perhaps it is exactly because of that everything is precious. Nothing lasts forever. And within that very impermanence lies the fragile beauty of existence. A rain falls, then stops, and the wet street reflects the sky's faint light. Two eyes meet, then part, but the memory remains in the heart, like a distant echo of something once real. Nothing stays forever, but nothing ever truly disappears. Everything simply changes roles in the eternal play of life. And so, instead of fear, you begin to feel gratitude. Grateful even for the things that once made you cry. For now you see they too were silent teachers, showing you how to open your heart, how to see the tenderness hidden in loss. Grateful for each ordinary moment, because you realize there is nothing ordinary about existence. Every breath is a miracle. Every blink is another reshaping of the universe. And when you see that, you no longer need to seek happiness, because everything, even sorrow, already carries happiness within it. You sit by the river, listening to the sound of water flowing over stone. The river never keeps anything, yet it never loses anything either. It simply flows. A leaf falls, is carried away, but in the current, it becomes part of the movement, no longer separate, merged into the whole, like a note dissolving into the symphony. You understand. Dissolving is not the end, it is the return. And then, one morning, you wake and open the door. Sunlight glimmers on dewdrops resting upon the leaves. The air is silent, as if sound has never existed. In that moment, and your hands. No past, no future, only living. And in that simplicity, you hear what humanity has been searching for, the gentle whisper of life. Smiling. Some days, you walk through the crowd and feel as if you are dreaming within the dream of humankind. People rush by, the headlights sweep across faces too fast to see clearly. Laughter, sighs, voices all merging into one chaotic song. And in that song, you realize no one truly knows where they are running. Each person carries a dream, a goal, a promise. Someone wants success. Someone wants to be loved. Someone wants to prove they matter. The entire world is a vast casino, and everyone is gambling on something: fame, affection, belief, or their own happiness. You look and see yourself in them, the one who once believed that winning just once would finally be enough. But now you understand. This game never had a winner. The world turns like a giant wheel, and humans are both the ones spinning it and the ones being spun. Day after day, they build plans, dreams, and ambitions, then grow weary chasing them. Sometimes they stop and sigh, only to start running again, afraid that if they pause too long, they will be left behind. You were once there too, caught in the wheel of becoming someone, achieving something, proving your worth. But now you stand outside, like the moon gazing upon the ocean, not intervening, only reflecting. No judgment, only understanding. One person falls, another weeps. Someone burns with anger after betrayal, another glows in new love. And you know all these moments, however different, are expressions of the same life. When someone suffers, you feel that pain echo in your own heart, but you are no longer drowned in it. You let it pass, like letting a thin wisp of smoke drift through an open window. Compassion is no longer an ideal, but the natural response of awareness. Because when you see that no one is truly separate, the suffering of another is the breath of your own being, then you no longer wish to change the world. Not out of indifference, but because you understand the world transforms when people begin to see themselves clearly. You help not by trying to fix, but by living as a mirror, silent, honest, reflecting everything as it is. Whoever looks into you will see themselves, sometimes the parts they fear, sometimes the parts they forgot long ago. And perhaps that is the deepest form of healing. Not trying to change anyone, but being present enough for them to feel safe to return to who they truly are. Some will ask you, how can I be like that? But you know there is no secret. The harder they try, the farther they drift. Because the true path has no steps. You will simply whisper, stop. Look at what is happening right now. For every answer hides within this very moment. There is nothing mysterious about awakening. It is so simple that people often overlook it, like searching for the moon while it is already shining above your head. And then you will realize, every illusion of this world carries its own kind of beauty. The one chasing wealth is also searching for safety. The one desiring fame is also seeking recognition. The one longing for love is also yearning to be seen, to be touched, to be understood. All are simply different ways human beings try to find their way home. No one is wrong, some just take a longer path. Seeing this, you no longer laugh or mock, but feel tenderness instead, knowing you once wandered just as they do. One afternoon, you sit in a small cafe, looking out at the busy street. Children run and play, a shopkeeper laughs, an elderly couple holds hands as they cross the road. Nothing seems special, yet in your eyes, everything shines. Because now you no longer see through the eyes of an observer, but through the very light that sees, through all eyes. The world is no longer a scene to behold. It is the living movement of life itself, breathing through you. And in that moment, you understand something beyond words. Awakening is not escaping the dream. It is waking up within it. You still live, still eat, laugh, and grieve. But everything feels as light as a cloud. There is no longer have to do, only get to do. No longer have to understand, only get to see. No longer have to become, only get to be. And so the world keeps turning. People still love, hate, hope, and despair. But you know, each of these spinning cycles is quietly leading them to the very place where you sit now. In the stillness of the heart, where no answer is needed, only the moon's soft light remains silent, gentle, and full of compassion. When you are still enough to look deeply, you begin to see nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. A leaf falls, melts into the soil, and from that soil, a new sprout rises. A flame burns out, but its warmth lingers in the room, turning into the energy that enters someone's breath. Everything that disappears is only continuing in another form. And with that understanding, death, the thing humanity fears most, suddenly feels gentle. Like a door opening, not closing. You begin to see impermanence not as something sad, but as something miraculous. For without loss, nothing new could be born. Without decay, there would be no space for renewal. Like music without pauses, a melody would only be endless noise without a soul. It is the rests, the empty spaces, that create the rhythm of life. And when you accept this, everything in life becomes softer. There is no longer a need to hold, only to be grateful while it is here. Once, you feared endings. You feared that everything would fade into oblivion. You feared losing those you loved. You feared being erased by time. But now, you understand, time erases nothing. It only passes things along. Everything that once seemed to belong to you was never truly yours. It merely borrowed your form to pass through a chapter of existence. When you laugh, the universe laughs through you. When you cry, the universe touches itself through that sorrow. You realize that no one is truly happy or sad alone. Everything is connected in an invisible web of feeling, of life, of breath. When the self disappears, the smallest things become sacred. A dry leaf on the ground can bring tears to your eyes, because you feel within it the same current of energy that flows within you. A crack on the wall, a reflection of light upon the water, each can become a window opening toward eternity. And when you look at the world through those eyes, you understand why the wise so often smile and say nothing. It is not because they have something to hide. It is because nothing more needs to be said, for words are too small to contain this. Life cannot be described, it can only be experienced. And that experience does not happen in the future. It happens now in the breath, in the light upon the wall, in the quiet vibration of your heart. There is no spiritual journey, because there is no traveler. There is no destination, because there is nowhere else to go. There is no awakening, because you were never asleep. Everything you ever sought was always beneath your feet, hidden only by the search itself. Now that the seeker has dissolved, only pure presence remains, belonging to no one, needing no name. The world continues to turn, but within you, an infinite space opens. It is not empty. It is overflowing, so full that there is no longer anyone left to contain it. Perhaps this is what every journey points toward, a gentle merging between oneself and everything. No more separation, no more questions. Only life, quietly gazing upon itself through countless forms, countless souls, countless stories. You are one of those stories, and also the one telling it. You are the wave, and also the sea. And in this moment, as every sound settles and the breath becomes as light as wind, you may finally hear what you have been seeking all your life. Peace does not arrive, because it has never left. When a person truly awakens, they do not leave the world, they return to it, with a heart full of stillness. No longer escaping to mountains or monasteries, but walking again among people in the noise of traffic, in the stories of joy and sorrow, while carrying within them a silence that cannot be disturbed. Awakening does not turn a person into a saint. It simply makes them profoundly ordinary. You walk down the street, seeing people arguing, laughing, crying. Each face is its own universe, filled with thousands of hopes, fears, and beliefs. And in them, you see yourself, the version of you that once was, busy, longing, uncertain, reaching for something that never truly existed. But instead of judgment, your heart feels only compassion. Not pity, but a quiet love. A love born from understanding that everyone is finding their way home to the same place, just along different paths, each carrying a different lantern in hand. You see a person filled with anger, and you no longer want to fix them. You simply watch, knowing that beneath that anger lies fear, and beneath that fear, a soul searching for safety. You see the greedy, the boastful, the ones who need to prove themselves, and you recognize them. That too was once you, only now you have passed through that dream. No one is truly bad. They are only trying to feel loved, but walking the winding roads of the ego to find it. The world now is no longer a puzzle to solve. It is a piece of music unfolding, sometimes chaotic, sometimes gentle. And you simply listen, without trying to tune it, without searching for harmony, just quietly smiling, as you realize every dissonant note has its own place within the great symphony of life. You begin to see the miraculous in the ordinary. A mother guiding her child across the street, an old man sitting quietly on a stone bench, a little child picking up a pebble, studying it as if it were a treasure. Each holds the same current of life that flows through you. Awakening does not make you distant. On the contrary, it brings you closer to the world, because when the ego dissolves, the wall between self and others falls away. You no longer love someone, you simply love. Love appears in every glance, in every heartbeat, in every breath that passes through life. And this love does not need to be returned. It is not personal. It is like sunlight still shining, even when someone closes the window. When you live in this awareness, every action becomes light. There is no more must do, only get to do. No more right or wrong, only what fits. No more plan, only flow. Others may see you as quieter than before, but inside, you feel more alive than ever. Not the aliveness of desire, but the aliveness of presence. Everything becomes an opportunity to observe. Anger to observe. Joy to observe. Disappointment to observe as well. No need to avoid anything, because you know no emotion is an enemy. Once you sit beside an old friend, someone still spinning in the storm of work, worry, and ambition. He asks you, "How can you stay so calm?" You smile, "Because I stopped trying to be calm." He stays silent for a long while, then exhales, as if realizing for the first time that peace does not come from doing more, but from pausing long enough to see. The outer world remains noisy, but within you, a sky of stillness opens. You no longer struggle to keep the peace, because true peace cannot be kept. It is the natural state of life when it is not disturbed by fear or desire. Sometimes, the ego still visits, whispering familiar lines. Am I wasting time? Should I do more? Be better? Stand out more? But instead of arguing, you simply smile, "Thank you, but I do not need that today." And as the words fade, your mind opens again, like still water, quiet yet radiant, motionless yet full. The more you live in this stillness, the clearer one simple truth becomes. The world has never needed fixing. It only needs to be seen through eyes that do not judge. When you look at someone without labeling them, they are given space to become themselves. When you listen without interrupting, a conversation becomes a small ritual of presence. When you act without seeking recognition, your actions become a melody of freedom. And then you realize, the simplest things in life, washing a bowl, sweeping a leaf, placing a cup of tea on the table, can all be meditation. Because meditation is not about posture, but about wholeness in each moment. When you wash the bowl, there is only water and foam. The mind may keep speaking, but now you listen to it the way you would listen to a stream bubbling, sometimes loud, but no longer carrying you away. You are no longer the current of thought. You are the space through which the current flows. And within that space, you begin to notice something strange. Every movement, no matter how small, has a rhythm. The rhythm of a heartbeat, the rhythm of rain, the rhythm of wind slipping through a window crack, the rhythm of breathing, and even the rhythm within silence itself. The world, it turns out, is an invisible symphony, and you have always been its silent listener. You simply spent so long chasing the lyrics that you forgot the background melody that has been playing in your heart all along. Silence is not an escape from life. It is seeing that life itself has always been speaking to you in the language of quiet. Every drop of water, every passing breeze, every glance from a stranger, each is an invisible letter sent to you by the world. Not to be decoded, but simply to remind you that you are still alive in a wordless dance. You may be sitting now in your familiar room. Nothing special. A yellow light, the whir of a fan, the faint scent of old wood in the air. But if you look closely, everything becomes sacred, not because it has changed, but because for the first time, you are truly seeing it. Silence brings everything back to its origin. A cup is just a cup. A breath is simply a breath. There is no me and it. There is only being. In that moment, you may feel something strange, a nameless closeness, as if the entire universe were sitting beside you, silent, yet overflowing with life. Everything, even sadness, becomes transparent. You no longer need to chase it away, because you know it is only a visitor. It has come to remind you that there is still a host here, one who is never swept away by the feelings he carries. If you can, close up your eyes for a moment. Listen to what is truly happening. Perhaps it is the sound of a clock. Perhaps it is your breath. Perhaps it is the space between everything. But that nothing is the foundation of all things. From it, everything arises and dissolves. It is the silent essence of existence itself. In this silence, illusion loses its power. Not because you have conquered it, but because there is no one left to deceive. The self that once feared, desired, and clung is now just a faint spark, dissolving into the night of awareness. And strangely, you do not feel any loss. On the contrary, you feel more open than ever, as if the entire sky has quietly entered your chest, and your breath no longer belongs to anyone. No one can teach you how to reach silence, because you never lost it. You only need to notice that every sound, every thought, every worry is merely a ripple upon the still surface of a lake. Beneath the ripples, the water remains clear, still, and perfectly reflecting the sky. When you stop stirring, the lake does not need time to settle, it was already still. And within that stillness, a deep awareness begins to rise like moonlight upon water. Everything is already perfect, even if we do not yet understand why. There is nothing more to seek, nothing to wait for. Silence is not in the future, it is here, in this very moment as you read these words. If you listen closely, you will realize that even the word silence is fading until only breath remains, only life remains. There comes a moment when silence is no longer something you feel, but what you have become. There is no longer "I am silent." There is only silence knowing itself. Like a flame aware of its own burning, like water aware of its own reflection, consciousness begins to recognize itself, not through thought, not through words, but through pure, effortless presence. And in that moment, all boundaries dissolve like morning mist. Before the Sunday, there is no inside and outside, no me and the world. Everything unfolds within a single space, and you are both the witness and the unfolding itself. The sound of rain is no longer distant. It falls in your ears, in your heart, and within the pulse of your blood. The light that filters through the window is no longer shining into the room. It is shining outward from this very awareness itself. Nothing comes to you anymore, because now you are the place where everything happens. People call this the state of no self. But even the word state is not entirely accurate, because nothing is achieved. There is no path, no destination, only the dissolving of the idea that there was ever someone walking. No self is not the loss of oneself. It is the realization that you were never separate from anything at all. What you call I is only a small wave on the infinite ocean of life. And when the wave stops calling itself separate, it returns to being the sea, vast, silent, and all-embracing. If you observe carefully, you will see that even your breath no longer belongs to you. It is simply coming and going, like wind passing through an open door. Every thought, every emotion, is just a guest visiting the house of consciousness. No one needs to chase them away, and no one needs to hold them. You become the house itself, and everything is free to arrive and to leave without leaving a trace. In that space, even time dissolves. There is no before or after, only an eternal present, with no beginning and no end. You realize that you were never living in time. Time was living in you. Years, memories, dreams, they are all just ripples rising on the surface of the lake, of awareness, then fading without a mark. And though everything disappears, that awareness remains the silent background that never changes. It is strange when the self dissolves, fear dissolves with it. No more fear of losing, because there is nothing to lose. No more fear of dying, because how can death touch what was never born? The life you feel now is no longer yours alone. It is life itself, pulsing through every grain of dust, every wave, every breeze. You are no longer breathing the air. Life is breathing itself through you. And then you begin to see everything differently. The person crossing the street is no longer a stranger, but another expression of yourself walking by. The bird on the rooftop is no longer a part of the scenery, but the sound of existence itself singing. Even pain, yours or another's, is no longer something to escape, but a rhythm within the shared song. A moment when you heard music and forgot the one who was listening. A moment when you laughed and realized the laughter did not belong to anyone. It was simply happening. In those moments, you have briefly glimpsed yourself in your most original form, nameless, storyless, and without boundaries. But often, when that moment fades, the I returns and whispers, "That was so peaceful. How can I keep that feeling forever?" And that very question marks the return of illusion. Because peace cannot be kept, just as wind cannot be trapped in your hands. Peace does not come from effort. It arises when the one who is trying disappears. When there is no one left to hold on, only presence remains. And within that presence, everything has already been perfect all along. The moment you realize this, the world becomes suddenly clear. Every sound, every image, every instant carries a quiet aliveness, as if everything is breathing on its own, existing effortlessly, needing no proof of being real. The I may still speak, still think, still act, but now it is only an echo, a distant voice from a role once played, and you, the one who is watching that role, begin to smile. A smile that belongs to no one, yet holds the entire universe within it. When the walls of the self begin to dissolve, the world also changes its color. Not because the world itself has changed, but because the one who is seeing it no longer looks through the glass of the ego. Everything becomes strangely intimate. The sound of the wind is no longer sound out there, but the rhythm of your own breath. The light of morning no longer shines down, but seems to glow from within your own awareness. A flower opens, and something within you opens too. A bird takes flight, and something within you soars along. There is no distance left between the observer and the observed. All of it moves together softly, continuously, without a name. If someone were to ask, "Who are you?" perhaps you would no longer answer with a name, a profession, or a past. You would simply say, "I am that which is aware of all things." Because when you look deeply, you see what we call I is only a thin layer, a single wave upon the surface of the ocean of consciousness. The wave has a shape, a name, a story, but it is never apart from the sea. When the wave dissolves, the sea remains. When it rises again, the sea is still the quiet foundation beneath it. You are that ocean, boundless, still, and containing within you every movement. The fading of the self does not come through effort. It comes when we stop believing that the self must disappear. Because even the thought, "I want to dissolve," is only another mask of the ego. When we simply observe in silence, the ego melts away on its own, like morning mist, dissolving as sunlight touches it. We do not kill it. We do not run from it. We simply see. And that pure seeing alone is what makes every illusion melt. In that state, life suddenly becomes very simple. There is no meaning and no purpose, only presence. When eating, you only eat. When walking, you only walk. When laughing, you no longer know who is laughing. There is only laughter. When sadness comes, you do not search for reasons. There is only sadness, quietly passing by, like a cloud drifting across the sky. The world is no longer a place you live in, but the very life that is unfolding within you. There is no inside or outside, no here or there, only one continuous flow, where all forms are born and vanish together. A child's laughter, an old man's sigh, a flower fading, a drop of rain falling, all are different expressions of the same living presence. And you realize, no one has ever truly left anyone. Everything only changes form, as a flame changes shape inside the same lamp. Sometimes you will see this most clearly in silence, not the outer silence, but the inner one, where every thought stops competing to speak. That silence is not empty. It is full, overflowing. No one is thinking, yet understanding appears more clearly than ever. In that moment, you are no longer observing randomness. You are randomness itself. You are no longer accepting life. You are life itself. The rain is no longer falling on you. You are falling with the rain. The moon no longer awakens. You are opening your eyes with it. Everything we once called a paradox now feels perfectly natural. Because when the boundary between subject and object dissolves, everything is true at once. Life is both random and ordered. The human being is both small and infinite. Everything is real, and nothing needs to be proven anymore. In that instant, the gambler's fallacy, the illusion that once deceived the mind with the hope of balance, becomes a gentle joke. Because you see, there is nothing to balance. It is imbalance itself that makes existence so beautifully alive. You sit and look at the coin in your hand. It glimmers beneath the moonlight. One side is heads, the other tails. And suddenly, you realize both sides belong to the same coin. Without one, the other could not exist. Just as without illusion, there would be no awakening. Without fear, there would be no courage. Without the self, there would be no one to realize that they are everything. And in that moment, you no longer wish to understand anything more. There is no need to call it enlightenment. No need to declare, I have arrived. Because there is no destination and no traveler. There is only life, flowing like a song without beginning or end. And you are the melody itself. Night falls. The sky is black as cloth, scattered with tiny holes of light. You look up, and it feels as if the entire universe is breathing with you. There is no one left to ask, and nothing left to answer. Only silence remains deep, warm, and so complete it cannot be described. A silence that belongs to no one, but to which everything returns. At some point, you no longer need to search for silence because you realize silence has never left. It lives in the pauses between your words. It rests in the breath between inhaling and exhaling. It hides in the quiet that follows each drop of rain. Silence is not the opposite of sound, but the vast space that allows every sound to exist. And when you see that, the whole world suddenly becomes still, not because it stops moving, but because you stop resisting its motion. This is the moment when the journey of reason ends, and the journey of presence begins. From here, there is no longer an observer and a thing observed. There is only observation, a flow passing through the eyes, the ears, the heart, no longer clouded by labels or judgment. A leaf falls, and you no longer think, a leaf is falling. You simply feel the motion, as if you yourself are falling with it. No need to describe, no need to remember, only the presence within movement. Many people say, silence is hard, because my mind will not stop thinking. But silence does not require the mind to stop. Just as the sun does not ask the clouds to move away in order to shine. And then, at some point, we stop. We leave the glass as it is, and we sit down. In that stopping, the image begins to appear on its own, not because we did something right, but because we stopped trying to fix the world. Awakening is not waking up from a dream. It is knowing that we are dreaming and still being able to smile at the dream. Those who have awakened live in the same chaotic world, but the difference is they no longer resist it. They see beauty even in what is broken. They see light even in darkness. And they no longer need the world to change for their hearts to be at peace. A Zen master once said, "The one who has not understood tries to fix the world. The one who has begun to understand tries to fix himself. But the one who has truly seen stops fixing anything at all. That is not surrender. It is the maturity of understanding where action and stillness become one. We still live, still love, still work, still dream, but we no longer gamble on the outcome. Each act becomes an expression of love, not a strategy to achieve something. Like a painter who paints only for the love of color, not to sell the painting. Like a musician who plays not for applause, but because in the music, he finds his own breath. That is how human beings live when they have walked beyond illusion. Not a life without direction, but a life no longer bound by expectation. When we truly see this, a strange calmness covers everything. There is no longer the question, when will happiness come? Because we realize that happiness never comes. It has always been here. No longer, how can I suffer less? Because suffering is simply another shape of living. Joy and sorrow, like two sides of a coin, reflect one another in the turning rhythm of time. We once tried to hold only one side, but now we simply watch the coin spin in the air, shimmering, free and fleeting, just like us. At that moment, letting go is no longer an effort, but a natural response of a mind that understands. We no longer have to try to let go, because there is nothing left to release. Even the self, the one observing, begins to fade, dissolving into the vast stillness that is seen through these very eyes. What remains is not a person who is awake, but awakening itself, a nameless, directionless state where the observer and the observed are no longer two. There are nights when the world is utterly silent, and it is then that we can feel this most clearly. The sound of the wind outside, a car fading into the distance, the steady beat of the heart in your chest, all blending together, as if life itself were breathing with you. There is no one here to control the breath, and no one there to make the sound. There is only one flow, soft, steady, and infinite. Some may call it enlightenment, but perhaps it is much simpler. It is merely the moment we stop asking life, why, and begin to ask more gently, what is present now? And when we look, the world answers with silence. But that silence is not empty. It is full, warm, alive, and complete. Like two long-time lovers who no longer need words, because the gaze alone is enough. We begin to see that even illusion is part of truth. Because without darkness, how could we ever recognize light? Without delusion, how could we ever know stillness? Without the mistaken belief that we can control, how could we ever discover the freedom of letting go? So, awakening is not turning away from life, but embracing both the dream and the truth, both error and understanding, as two sides of the same heart. And perhaps, when you sit quietly tonight, listening to these words drift by like breaths, allow your mind the permission not to understand anymore. No need to search for a message. No need to memorize a philosophy. Just relax, as if you too are drifting with these words, with the breath, with the world. Because sometimes, to understand the illusion is to have gone far enough to love it. There will come a moment when you no longer ask, who am I? But quietly ask instead, who is asking? That question is not meant to find an answer, but to open a small slit of light, a space where the questioner and the questioned slowly begin to merge. In that space, the I that once felt so solid, the one who won and lost, who believed and despaired, becomes hazy, like smoke dissolving into morning mist. For all these years, we thought we were the ones in control, the thinker, the chooser, the feeler. But if you look closely, you will see every thought, every emotion, every decision simply happens, like the wind blowing, like clouds drifting. No one commands them. The brain gives birth to a thought, then proudly believes, I am the one who thought it. An emotion appears, and awareness rushes in to declare, I am sad. But if you sit quietly and observe, you will realize emotions come and go, but the one who sees them remains. And who is the one that remains? Not the body, not the mind, but the pure awareness watching it all. Realizing this is a quiet earthquake. Because for so long, we tied our entire existence to everything that changes, to feelings, thoughts, roles, and stories. But those are only waves upon the surface. Beneath them lies a deeper layer still, as the sea when the wind has stopped. That layer is the part of us that remains untouched, no matter how wildly life swirls. It does not fear losing, it does not crave winning, it does not demand fairness, and it does not need to understand. It simply knows. Like a lamp unconcerned with what fills the room, it only shines. But to recognize that layer, we must walk a long path through illusion, through the belief that I am the center of the world. We once believed that everything revolved around, that other people's sadness somehow related to us, that our success defined our worth, that failure was proof of our mistakes. But slowly, we begin to see everyone is swimming in the same ocean of awareness, only in different places, with different rhythms and different waves. No one is the center, and for that very reason, everyone is. When we understand this, the sense of separation within the mind begins to dissolve. We no longer see the world as a stage with us and them. We begin to see ourselves within others. When we see someone angry, we see the shadow of fear within ourselves. When we see someone loving, we recognize the part of us that once loved that way. When we see someone lost, we understand because we too have been lost. The world becomes a vast mirror, each person reflecting a fragment of the self we have yet to recognize. That is when the idea of I begins to soften. It is no longer a wall, but a mist, present yet transparent. We still have a name, a body, a memory, but they are only instruments through which life experiences itself. And when the I becomes this light, life takes on a completely new flavor. It is no longer a struggle to prove, but a dance between the observer and the observed, where no one leads and no one follows. Perhaps you have already touched such a moment without knowing. A second when you watched the sunset and felt your heart become still, as if you disappeared, and only the sky remained, changing colors. To live like a tree growing, like the wind blowing, like the rain falling. Not to defeat randomness, but to see it and smile at it, as you would an old friend, mischievous, unpredictable, but always honest. By this point, the illusion of control fades like morning mist. We begin to see that everything winning and losing, gain and loss, are simply different beats of the same universal heart. We lose not because we are lesser, but because losing is part of life's rhythm. We gain not because we deserve more, but because gain itself is just another passing breeze. When you see life this way, you stop worrying about the meaning of every outcome, and start observing how meaning arises naturally within you instead. A person might flip a coin all their life, and each time, they try to guess what it is trying to tell them. But another person might flip it only once, watch it fall, and understand that there was never a message there at all, only gravity and motion. And within that simplicity lies a beauty that reason can never touch. Randomness, it turns out, is not meaningless. It simply does not carry a fixed meaning. We are the ones who give it meaning, and in doing so, we are the ones illuminated by the very game we play. When you sit quietly at night and remember all the times you tried to predict the future, ask yourself, if you already knew exactly what was going to happen, would you still want to live? Life keeps its secrets for a reason, because that is what allows it to astonish us. If everything went exactly according to plan, there would be nothing left to experience, nothing to feel, nothing to grow from. Uncertainty is not the universe's mistake. It is its greatest gift, an invitation to be fully present, instead of becoming a machine for predicting tomorrow. Someone once asked, if everything is random, then what meaning remains in love, kindness, or courage? And the answer is this: precisely because they are not forced, they are real. When you help someone, not because you are sure that good will come back to you, but simply because in that moment your heart wishes to help, that is freedom. When you love someone, not because you hope love will be returned, but because you cannot help but love, that is freedom. And when you live, not because you want something to change, but because you want to live, that is freedom. And perhaps, when we truly touch that freedom, the gambler's fallacy is no longer a logical error to be corrected, but a mirror. It reflects humanity's deepest fear, the fear of being left alone in a world without order. But when we dare to stand still and look into that mirror, we discover that behind every illusion, there is no chaos at all, only a vast stillness, where we and randomness are no longer two opposing forces, but two breaths of the same life. Awakening does not mean destroying the illusion. It means realizing that we are dreaming. The illusion remains like morning mist over a quiet lake. But instead of trying to wipe it away, we simply stand and look, because we know the mist is not real, yet it does not have to disappear for the lake to be beautiful. Life, if you look closely, is a sequence of illusions we learn to love. The illusion of control, the illusion of fairness, the illusion that pain will one day be repaid. These are not wrong, they are simply incomplete. For within each illusion hides both fear and longing. We fear uncertainty, so we create laws. We fear loneliness, so we create meaning. We fear death, so we create purpose. And in that process, we are not mistaken. We are simply learning how to be human, learning first to resist the wind of randomness, and then slowly learning to let go of the oars, allowing the river to carry us. One day, after many disappointments, we begin to ask, if there are no rules and no fairness, then what are we living for? That question often sounds like a sigh, but in truth, it is a doorway to a new level of awareness, because only when every pillar of our old beliefs collapses do we finally see the ground beneath our soul. It is the moment we stop searching for a reason to live and begin to live for the sake of this breath alone. Not because we have understood everything, but because we have realized that understanding everything is no longer necessary. From that moment, we begin to see life differently. Each morning is no longer the next part of a plan, but a new event of the present. Each pain is no longer a punishment, but a wave arriving, then fading away. Each loss is no longer a failure, but simply the movement of the game. When we stop asking, when will my bad luck end? We start to see beauty, even in unlucky days. Because the miracle does not lie in the outcome, but in the ability to notice that life keeps unfolding, even when it is not what we wanted. Awakening is not sitting atop a mountain. It is sitting calmly in the middle of chaos and smiling as if you have just heard a silent song. When we understand this, we realize that illusion is not the enemy. It is a mirror reflecting the evolution of the mind. Without illusion, we would never know how deeply we once feared. And without that fear, we could never feel the depth of true peace. Think about it. If there were no mistakes, how could we ever learn humility? If there were no failures, how could we understand the value of effort? If there were no random turns that left us lost, how could we ever discover that the only direction has always been within? Everything we once called wrong is really a subtle lesson life uses to whisper to us, do not believe that you are controlling me. You and I are the same flow. A Tibetan monk once said, when you stop trying to awaken, you have already begun to awaken. Awaken. And perhaps in that paradox, we find a truth gentler than any philosophy. That awakening is not a destination, but a state of release. Letting go is not giving up. It is accepting that even the effort to understand is still part of the dream. When you truly see that, every struggle in the mind comes to rest. Not because you have won, but because you realize there was never anyone to win against. The self that seeks control and the world being controlled are simply two roles in the same play. And when the curtain finally falls, the actor and the audience turn out to be one. And then, in that silence, something extraordinary happens. The world is no longer frightening. Randomness still arrives, but it no longer makes us tremble. Everything still happens, but now we no longer rush to give it meaning. Because the greatest meaning of life is that it never needed a fixed meaning at all. We begin to understand why those who are truly at peace rarely speak about the secret of happiness. Because they have seen that there is no secret. There is only life and us breathing together. No more gambler within the mind waiting for a reversal. Only a person sitting quietly, listening to the sound of the coin falling, and smiling at the fall itself. When we truly let go, the world does not change only the way we see it does. The rain still falls, but it is no longer a sign of sadness. The one who leaves still leaves, but no longer takes our heart with them. Randomness still arrives, but it no longer frightens us. Everything continues as it always has. Only now, for the first time, we can look without needing to understand. That is when we begin to live truly, no longer driven by the need to find hidden meanings behind everything, but allowing everything to simply be what it is. When the mind is still ruled by illusion, we see life as if through a fogged glass. We keep wiping, polishing, trying to see a clearer image. But the more we wipe, the cloudier it becomes, because the very effort to see more clearly takes away the stillness needed to truly see. And in that moment, fear dissolves, because loss is no longer a definition, only a temporary state within experience. Maybe right now, in the stillness of the night, you can also see yourself, one part of your mind still wanting to believe that next time will be different, and another part smiling softly, as if whispering, "It does not need to be." Both parts are real. One is survival instinct, the other is awareness. And when you are gentle enough to listen to both, they merge into something strange, a peace that needs no reason. Perhaps this is the deepest lesson the gambler's fallacy offers, that in all our efforts to find fairness, what we truly long for is just a moment of stillness inside. And when you can sit quietly, listening to your own heartbeat, hearing the randomness of the world drift by like the sound of rain, without judgment, without demand, just listening, then, no matter which way the coin lands, you have already won. Human beings do not only believe in fairness, we believe we can control fairness itself. It is a quiet belief, one that seeps into everything we do, from how we plan our lives to how we read meaningless coincidences and turn them into signs. We tap the table 3 times to avoid bad luck. We wear a lucky shirt before an exam. We whisper a prayer before drawing a lottery number, as if someone might be listening. These habits may seem naive, but they reveal an ancient instinct, the fear of not being able to control the outcome. The brain cannot bear the idea that things might happen without reason. It needs someone or something to be responsible. And if it cannot find one, it will invent one. So when a coin falls tails 5 times in a row, it does not see randomness. It sees a rule preparing to reverse. When life keeps testing us again and again, it does not see a series of events. It sees a cycle about to end. We go on living, in the illusion of control, believing that if we can just recognize the pattern, we can predict the future and avoid suffering. But have you ever noticed that the more we try to control, the more anxious we become? It is like holding sand in your palm. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. The feeling of control is a gentle illusion. And when it fades, we lose not only our faith in the world, but also our faith in ourselves. We cannot stand not knowing, so we start looking for signs. A repeating number, a glance from a stranger, a song that plays at the perfect time. We turn randomness into language and call it destiny. But sometimes, destiny is nothing more than our way of feeling that we are not lost. A philosopher once said, "Nothing is more frightening than a meaningless world, and nothing is more freeing." That may sound like a paradox, but it is the doorway to awareness. Because when we accept that the world does not need meaning for us to love it, every burden drops away. We stop asking why. We stop waiting for what comes next. And within that open space, a quiet peace begins to grow. You can look back over your life and see how often we cling to patterns. We believe that good people will receive good things. We believe that persistence always brings success. We believe that if we love deeply enough, the other person will change. These beliefs are not wrong. They are ropes that have helped us climb through dark nights. But if we forget that they are only stories, we begin to live in the illusion that we can control the result. We try to bend life to fit the shape of fairness. But life is a river with no fixed form. It does not bend to us. We are the ones swimming within it. There is a famous psychological experiment called the illusion of control. Participants were asked to throw dice. When they truly believed they could win, they threw harder and more deliberately, as if the strength of their hand could change the outcome of an object spinning freely through space. When they believed they were about to lose, their throws became softer, a quiet gesture of surrender. In reality, the result had nothing to do with how they threw, but their brains still felt the difference. That feeling, the sense that we can influence the outcome, is what keeps people placing bets. Because if we accept that everything is random, we are forced to face a terrifying truth. No one is responsible for our happiness or our suffering. There is no law of compensation. There is no, if I do good, good will return. There is only life and the way we choose to see it. But here is the surprising thing. When we dare to face that truth, we do not lose our power, we regain it. Because when we no longer need to control the outcome, we begin to control ourselves. When we stop depending on the streak of wins or losses, we return to the present moment, the only place where we truly have a choice. At that point, every action is no longer an effort to change fate. It becomes an expression of presence. You act not because you fear losing. You love not because you expect to be loved in return. You live not because you are waiting for something to happen. And within that unconditional space, everything becomes quietly clear. Sometimes, enlightenment does not come from answers, but from the moment you no longer feel the need to ask. Just like the gambler, after thousands of coin flips, finally watching one fall, not hoping for heads, not hoping for tails, just watching, and realizing that freedom does not lie in winning or losing, but in the ability to see both as the same. That is when the illusion dissolves. Not because you have understood it, but because you no longer need it to feel safe. Perhaps true freedom does not lie in controlling everything, but in no longer needing to. It sounds simple, but to arrive there, a person must go through countless breakings when every prediction turns to smoke, when every careful plan is blown apart by a single soft gust of wind. We do not know whether to call it fate, chance, or divine will. All we know is that no matter how carefully we calculate, life will do what it wants. And then, after all the struggling, one morning arrives when we simply feel tired. Not tired of losing, but tired of realizing we have been fighting the current for too long. There is a beautiful image for this. A monk once asked his student, "Do you see that boat on the river? Is it going with the current or against it?" The student answered, "It is going with the current." The monk smiled and said, "No, it is drifting with the water." Only one word changes, but the meaning becomes completely different. Because going with still implies intention that we chose that direction. But drifting with means we have become one with the flow. Life is the same. We think we are rowing, but most of the time, we are simply drifting through events, through randomness, through the unknowable. At first, realizing this can be frightening, but when we allow ourselves to be still, we feel a deep relief. A feeling like finally being allowed to stop clenching our fists. Human beings can endure pain, but we struggle to endure uncertainty. We can accept losing, but not the idea that we do not know when we will win. So we try to make the world orderly. We write rules, create beliefs, read omens, and look for patterns just to soothe ourselves with the illusion that we understand how the game works. But randomness does not listen to us. It only smiles and flips another coin. We may get angry, complain, or pray. But one day we realize, no one is flipping the coin but life itself. And life, like a child at play, needs no reason to do what it loves. Yet within that absurdity lies a quiet grace. Because if no one can control everything, then we no longer have to carry the weight of controlling it either. We do not always need to do right to be rewarded. We do not need to fix ourselves to change our fate. We only need to live. Imagine sitting before your screen, watching the red numbers flash stocks down, another 3%. Your hand tightens on the mouse, you mutter. It cannot keep falling forever. And so you hold for one more day, one more week, one more month, until you realize that belief did not save you. It only made the wound deeper. That is not because you are foolish. It is because the brain hates the feeling of losing. When results do not match desire, it cannot stand the gap between what we want to believe and what is actually happening. To patch that gap, it creates an illusion, a promise that everything will soon turn around. That is when reason quietly breaks in the hands of emotion. In a psychology lab, researchers once asked participants to play a simple game. They watched a video of coin flips, guessed the results, and received a small reward when they guessed right. After 5 tails in a row, most participants began choosing heads. When asked why, the answer was almost always the same: because it cannot be tails forever. That sentence sounds so perfectly logical. It makes the speaker feel clever, analytical. But in truth, it is not reason, it is belief disguised as logic. The brain does not simply process facts, it interprets them. And during that process, emotion sneaks in like a skilled editor, cutting away what makes us uneasy and adding what makes us feel safe. So each time we say, "Surely next time will be different," we are not analyzing the world. We are comforting ourselves. If you pay attention, you will see that this phenomenon is not confined to games, but present in every breath of life. When someone loves with all their heart and is betrayed, they tell themselves, "The next person will be better." When we work hard and still fail, we whisper, "One day this effort will be rewarded." When we go through dark years, we believe that the light is near. There is nothing wrong with hope, but sometimes that very hope is the most delicate mask covering fear. The fear that maybe no one and nothing is truly on our side. The fear that all our effort might just be an echo in a desert of silence. The brain, like a loyal friend, cannot bear to see us despair. It paints an imaginary law of fairness, that all pain will be repaid, that every loss will one day be restored, that every losing streak must eventually end. And we, exhausted and fragile, cling to it as we would cling to a final breath. Once, a psychologist said, "The gambler's fallacy does not only exist in casinos, it lives inside every silent prayer ever whispered. We pray because we believe we have suffered enough loss, enough loneliness. But life does not count how many times are enough. It simply flows its own way. So when luck comes, we call it reward. When misfortune lingers, we call it punishment. But sometimes, both are only random. It is hard to accept that because it makes us feel small, insignificant, like a grain of sand in a desert with no center. And yet, that is the very moment when a new kind of awareness opens. The realization that we do not need control to be at peace. Try to remember the last time you felt certain that luck is just around the corner. That moment, if you look closely, was not truly faith. It was fear, wearing the mask of faith. Fear that if you stopped believing, you would fall apart. Fear that if there was no reason, everything would lose meaning. And above all, fear of having to accept that you do not control anything at all. But there is something strange. When you truly face that helplessness, it no longer feels as terrifying as you imagined. The brain tries to protect you with illusion, but a deeper awareness within you, the part that watches even the illusion, has always been still. That part does not need fairness. It only needs clarity. A monk once said, "When people stop trying to understand everything, they finally begin to see." Perhaps that is what the gambler's fallacy has been trying to teach us all along. That within every blind faith in a reversal, there hides a longing for peace. And if we can see that longing without judgment, the illusion dissolves on its own. Like morning mist over a lake, when the first light touches it, it does not need to fight to disappear. It simply melts away, revealing the still water beneath, where there is no winning or losing, no luck or misfortune. That is when awareness begins to open. There is no longer I win or I lose. There is only I am seeing. Seeing the delicate mechanism, the brain has built a defense system disguised as reason, and realizing that reason, without awareness, is only another branch of frightened emotion. And when you realize that, every game begins to slow down. No more rushing to place bets. No more anxious waiting for results. Only a slow breath, and the dim light of an awareness waking quietly in the night. There comes a very strange moment in life, when you stop trying to predict outcomes, not because you have lost hope, but because you finally understand anything can happen, and you will still be all right either way. That is when the game changes meaning. It is no longer a sequence of wins and losses, but a gentle dance between human and chance. When you begin to see life that way, everything seems to slow down. The wind is no longer a sign of something. It is simply wind. The rain is no longer a symbol of sadness. It is simply rain. And failure is no longer preparation for success. It is simply a chapter, nothing more, nothing less. The brain, out of habit, will still whisper, "Next time will be different." But now you smile, because you understand that nothing needs to be different for you to be at peace. We often think that without believing in fairness, we would fall into despair. But strangely, the moment we let go of that belief, we begin to feel lighter. Because the fairness we think we crave is only another form of control. We want to believe the world follows rules, so we can know how to live right, to know when to hope and when to give up. But life has no instruction manual. Every time we try to predict it, we step further away from the real experience unfolding right now. Think of the times you have waited for a reversal, waiting for someone who left to return, waiting for luck to change direction, waiting for life to make up for all the dark years. That waiting takes the shape of hope, but inside, it is resistance to the present moment. We are not truly living. We are merely waiting to live. But when we stop waiting, when we finally sit down and accept that maybe nothing will change, when we stop demanding the coin to land on our chosen side, that is when we begin to feel a quiet kind of freedom. That freedom is not loud. It does not come from success or luck. It comes from no longer forcing life to obey some imagined law of balance. You can look at a string of failures without saying, "Surely, a victory is next." You simply say, "This is my present." And strangely, within that acceptance, something soft unfolds, like a flower growing through a crack in stone. People often think enlightenment is a brilliant flash of light. But sometimes it is only the moment you understand that the world does not need to change for your heart to be at rest. A man who had spent years in casinos once said, "The day I stopped believing in luck was the day I became truly free." Not because he won, but because he stopped being controlled by the hope of winning or losing. He still played, but he no longer gambled with hope. He simply watched the cards, heard the voices, the shuffle, the breathing, and within that rhythm of chaos, everything suddenly became profoundly still. In the same way, within the game of life, we cannot stop randomness. We can only choose how to see it. When we no longer expect the universe to compensate us, everything becomes frighteningly honest. But because of that honesty, it also becomes more beautiful. For every moment, whether victory or loss, carries its own unique flavor. And when we are no longer ruled by the need for things to turn around, we begin to taste the quiet sweetness even in the smallest defeats. If there is one truth behind the gambler's illusion, it is this: we are not truly afraid of losing. We are afraid of losing forever. We fear that the streak of unfairness will never end. But if we remove the word forever, what remains is only loss, something ordinary, raw, like a wave that has simply rolled over the sand. One of the sweetest lies the brain whispers into our ear is, "Next time will be different." That sentence sounds like comfort, like an invisible hand, gently soothing us every time we fail, every time things do not go the way we wish. It is the warmth of hope, but also the most delicate trap that human thought has ever built for itself. Imagine sitting in a late-night cafe. The only sound is the soft tapping of rain against the glass. In front of you sits a cup of coffee gone cold, and on your phone screen, a simple little game flipping a coin. You choose heads, it lands tails. You try again. Tails again. A third time, a fourth, a fifth. Still tails. By the sixth flip, you are almost certain. This time, it has to be heads. But probability does not care about your feelings. It remains 50-50. And yet, a quiet voice rises inside. It cannot be tails forever. That is the gambler's fallacy. A false belief that random events must somehow balance themselves out. That if something has happened too many times, its opposite must be coming soon, to restore fairness to the universe. But the universe does not run on fairness. It runs on cold, silent probability. It is we who draw meaning on top of it, who imagine rules, and who deceive ourselves with comforting stories. From the casinos of Las Vegas to the smallest daily decisions, this illusion shows up everywhere. A roulette player watches the ball spin into black again and again, and sighs, "Red is surely next." An investor sees stock prices drop all week and reassures himself, "Tomorrow it will bounce back." A person who has suffered too long looks up at the sky and prays, "Surely it is time for luck to smile." The brain hates chaos. It wants to find patterns in everything from strings of random numbers to sudden rainfall to the accidents we cannot control. It weaves stories so we can feel that we understand this world. But the moment we believe we understand, we are already lost. If we look deeper, the gambler's fallacy is not just a logical mistake. It is a mirror reflecting our fear of randomness itself. We are afraid to accept that some things simply happen not because we deserve them, not because the universe hides a secret message for us in the sky. We want to believe in fairness, in an invisible hand balancing everything. But when we wait for next time to be different, it means we are still resisting what is. We have not truly let go. So with every hand of cards, every spin of the wheel, every repeated effort, we are still bargaining with the universe about something it never promised. It is like a child tossing a coin into the air and closing their eyes, whispering, "Please, let me win this time." And when the coin falls, the child hesitates to look, afraid to face the truth that perhaps there was never a rule on its side at all. Just like us. In long stretches of loss, failure, or heartbreak, we still want to believe, surely, after all this pain, happiness will come. But when it does not, we feel wronged, angry, and once again demand that the universe repay its debt. We forget that sometimes the world owes us nothing. It simply turns like that coin without any concern for which side we hope to see. Outside, the rain continues to fall. Each droplet lands like another test in an endless experiment. No drop owes another. No drop balances the next. And yet, when we watch them, we still look for patterns. That drop fell, so the next will follow its rhythm. But in truth, they simply fall. We live our entire lives among such experiments in love, in work, in the endless search for meaning. After every failure, we tell ourselves, next time will be different. But if something needs to change, perhaps it is not the outcome, but the way we see the outcome. And maybe, right now, as you sit here listening to these words in the quiet breath of night, your brain is trying to find a pattern even in these sentences, thinking, surely this will end with a philosophical conclusion. But no, sometimes, simply noticing that you are trying to find a pattern is enough to reveal how the brain works. It is not evil. It is afraid. Afraid of facing a world without reasons. Afraid of the silence of probability, where anything can happen, or nothing may happen at all. The night goes on. You look down at the coin in your hand. Moonlight glints off the cold metal surface. One side is heads, the other is tails, but whichever side lands upward, it is still the same coin, just like life itself. Whether the result is victory or loss, the one playing the game is still you, and the game remains only a game. Have you ever wondered why the brain lies to us like this? It is not out of cruelty. It is not to make us suffer under illusion. It is trying to protect us from the feeling of being out of control. Since the time of our ancestors, humans lived in a world of chaos. Lightning from the sky, predators attacking without warning, harvests failing or thriving by chance. In that brutal randomness, the brain learned to find patterns, because those who saw the pattern first survived longer. If there was a rustle in the bushes, the brain would assume there is a predator before verifying it. Better wrong than dead. That reflex built the foundation of causal thinking. A leads to B. B leads to C. Everything must have a reason. But the modern world is no longer as simple as wind through the forest. We carry a prehistoric brain into a universe ruled by probability, statistics, and pure randomness. The brain is still looking for the beast in the bushes, but now the bushes are the random flips of a coin, or the unpredictable turns of life itself. We see 10 losses in a row and think, the next one must be a win. In truth, that is only the echo of an ancient instinct, a sext, deep, urgent need to find order within chaos. We cannot stand the thought that everything might simply be random. We want to feel that we understand, and through that understanding, that we can control, or at least predict, what will come next. But randomness does not obey reason. And when reason cannot bear its own helplessness, it begins to invent imaginary rules. Like a child afraid of the dark, it tells itself a story to fall asleep, that everything happens for a reason, that the universe will eventually restore fairness, that if we have lost long enough, we must be repaid. That story soothes us, but it also lulls us to sleep. In that sleep of logic, we lose the ability to see a simple truth. Randomness is not the enemy. It is life itself, breathing in its own rhythm. Think about the sound of the ocean. No wave compensates for the wave before it. There is no sequence of 3 high waves, then 1 low. They simply rise and fall. And if we keep searching for a pattern, we will miss the beauty of each wave breaking before our eyes. The brain hates that. It cannot stand a world without patterns. It wants to arrange, to predict, to control, so it turns randomness into an illusion of order. And within that comfort, we lose our freedom. A gambler does not stay at the table because he is foolish, but because he needs to believe that fairness will return. That belief, even if wrong, helps him survive the despair of feeling life is unfair. A person who has loved and lost many times still believes that true love will come after all the pain. Not because they are blind, but because they need to give meaning to every wound they carry. Our brain cannot bear a meaningless wound. It paints a promise over it, so that we can stand again. But those promises, over time, turn into a dream of perfect justice, a dream the real world can never fulfill. When we look at the game of life, we do not see the result as it is. We see it through the eyes of someone who has lost before someone hoping to win next time. And because of that, we keep playing, keep betting, keep waiting, as if a cosmic law of balance were quietly at work above us. But perhaps everything we see is only randomness, being honest, unbiased, unrepentant, unpromising. If we can understand that, we begin to discover a strange kind of freedom. Freedom from expectation. Freedom from the need to understand it all. Some people ask, if there is no fairness, then where is meaning? Perhaps meaning does not lie in the balance of results, but in the way we accept imbalance and still smile. The brain may lie to us, but it also gives us the ability to see that lie. And the very moment we see it, the lie loses its power. It is like watching a coin fall, no longer wishing for one side or the other. You simply watch it spin, catching the light, then touch the ground. And in that moment, you are no longer the player. You are the observer. So if tonight you hear that familiar whisper again, next time will be different. Just smile. There is no need to argue. No need to believe. Simply listen. The way you listen to rain, steady, unpromising. The brain is doing what it does best, telling stories so that we can bear the weight of living. And we, now awake inside that story, only need to remember this: not every lie is bad, but some are no longer worth believing. The moment we believe we are being most rational is often the moment emotion has taken the deepest hold.